Hey, welcome to Abracadabra. I am your host Jasveer, back with another episode and another fantastic personality. Today, I have an academician with me on the podcast. Academics is probably the most thankless job in the world. I mean, they are the brains behind the so called successful brains throughout the history. They mentor, they nurture, they train talent, yet they always work in the background. You would hardly hear a name of a teacher, related to a famous personality. It's the personality, not their teacher, but it's actually the teachers who nurtured them, who taught them, who trained them to be what they are today. I think they deserve our utmost respect. Please put your hands together in welcoming Dr. Amita Marwah, an academician par excellence on the podcast. She's a lecturer at Isabella Thoburn College, popularly known as the IT College, Lucknow. She qualified UGC NET in economics in 1998. She was awarded PhD in 2019 by University of Lucknow, Department of Economics, under the guidance of Shashi Lata Singh. Her topic of research was impact of economic reforms on growth and employment with special reference to service sector. We'll talk more about this topic because this is something I can relate to. Economics may not be my forte, but I think service sector is something that I've been connected to all through my career of about 20 years or so. So we're going to talk more about impact on the service sector. And she's also got a postgraduate in economics from Kanpur University in 1998. Dr. Marwah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jasveer. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. And it's a great platform that you have created. And I think you have been talking to various authors. This is the first time that an academician is on the board. So thank you for giving me an opportunity.
Absolutely. I've been talking to a lot of authors because I'm an author myself, but you're right. This is the first time I'm actually talking to an academician. And I was really looking forward to it. We've been planning, but somehow the timing was not working between EST and IST.
Yes.
And finally, we are here. It's really an honor to be talking to an academic. I have utmost respect for them. Like I said, economics may not be my subject, but then, I was very curious about the service sector part of it. So we're going to talk more about that. But let's quickly talk about your experience. You are in the hub of democracy. You're in Lucknow, the biggest state in India, kind of that makes or breaks the political, equations in India. So what's that experience like being an academic in a city like Lucknow? Tell us about your experience.
Yes, as you know that I am a domicile of Uttar Pradesh. Basically, I belong to Lucknow, and Uttar Pradesh has the privilege of giving most of the PMs, prime ministers, to India. Apart from that, we have a very densely populated. We are a very densely populated state. So we have two things. We have a workforce which is available. That not only a workforce, but it is also an educated workforce. So I think we have a demographic dividend there in Uttar Pradesh. And I have been teaching here from my experience is I think it's of 13 years now. And what I have found is that people over here are very curious. They have a lot of, curiosity towards academics. I think it's a myth that the people who belong to the villages or to the regional imbalanced states do not have that kind of what you can say bench. But the regional imbalance is not the issue here. The problem over here is only the lack of infrastructure, the accessibility of education in the backward areas is the only problem that we have. Otherwise, we have a lot of, I think, youth which have a lot of potential. So my experience is that once we give them an access, I think they can do wonders.
Would it be correct to assess that the education hub in UP is maybe limited to very few big cities like Noida, being part of Delhi NCR and Lucknow, and maybe it's not that good in rest of Uttar Pradesh?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That's where regional imbalance comes. That's what I was talking about. Some of the
Right.
areas in Uttar Pradesh has been developed basically because of the services sector.
Mhm.
When you establish a university somewhere, or when you establish a higher education institution, there has to be two things. First, the employability has to be taken into consideration, whatever courses you are introducing. So what happened was that Gurgaon and Noida had lot to offer in terms of a job employment.
Mhm.
That basically attracted youth, and that's what happened, that they became a hub, and they I think progress more as compared to some of the other regions in Uttar Pradesh.
Hmm.
But having said that, I think the potential is always
Yeah, I think UP has a huge potential. Just a FYI,
absolutely
I think UP and
yeah,
Bihar account for majority of the IAS officers, which is the administrative, position in Indian government sector, right? They account for the maximum IAS
absolutely,
and
absolutely,
IPS officers. So that's a
absolutely.
staggering fact.
I
That in
think that's
itself.
a yes, that's a second. Hmm.
Yeah.
But that's the advantage as well as I think the limitation also, because if you see that's the stereotype jobs which the youth is attracted to in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. But then
Mhm.
there are other avenues also which are being opened by the government. So I think that the youth is not being sensitized about these openings. And so what is happening that the government jobs have this pressure of so many individuals who are applying, as you said, that the Bihar and the UP seems to be attracted towards the administrative jobs. But then again, the administrative jobs are also government can offer only a limited amount of administrative jobs. So that's what, hence what I'm saying is that if the sensitization about other avenues is there, I think there is a possibility that this demographic dividend can be encashed by India.
Right. And talking about the talent in UP and Bihar, I've traveled extensively, across the states doing trainings, and I meet engineers, I meet a lot of technicians over there. So I think to some extent things are changing now, because the talent which had gone to, let's say, a bigger city like Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, is now returning back, because now, thanks to technology, thanks to IT specifically, a lot of talent is actually returning back. Because let's take example telecom. Telecom is present in all cities, villages in India. So you need technicians, you need engineers. So do you think with advancement in IT, a lot of talent is now returning back to these states?
Absolutely. To fill you in, yeah, you're absolutely right. India is the export hub for software services. So, and the Indian IT outsourcing service market is somehow somewhere, 6 to 8% growth. This is the 2021 and 2024 data. So, we are trying to say is that there is always a chance that these cities can become an IT hub. Having said that, even there are other sectors like healthcare industry, and which is now required. These are all services sector. So if once the government establishes the infrastructure, I think that there are a lot many avenues as far as job market is concerned
Right.
in Uttar Pradesh. Yeah.
So you do believe, things are changing, in fact, for good.
Absolutely, they are changing for good. Absolutely, even the education. See, there is what is happening is there is a gap between the education system and what industry requires. That gap has to be filled. The courses with the education or the higher education institutions are teaching do not match with the employability requirements of the industry. That's where the problem is,
Yeah,
and
I
that
think
problem
that's
has to be yes.
true. And that, I think, is sort of the root cause of the problem, wherein we are producing students in hordes, but we
Yes,
are not producing
absolutely.
employable students, right?
Employable students.
Or
Absolutely.
rather,
Because
employable
services sector,
employable
yes,
professionals. Yeah.
employability is not assured, because once even you have a degrees and hordes of degrees, you have MPhils and there are PhDs, that you must have noticed that they are not getting the adequate jobs. So the education unemployment seems to be, increasing in urban areas. And the
Right.
basic problem is only because the education system seems to be failing them. And I think if we update our syllabus and try to get in touch with the industry, what industry requires, I think the skill enhancement can happen in the right direction. And that is
Truly.
why there is a skill mapping concept. Yes, there is a skill mapping concept that is taking place even in Uttar Pradesh, in which our CM is planning to have that skill mapping.
Wow. Okay.
So that is
I
also a
think,
welcome.
yeah, that's a welcome change indeed. My
Yeah.
boss used to say that when I was into skill development, he used to say that,
Yes.
kids get job, students get job because of their degrees, but then they fail to hold on to that job or grow in that job because they lack the skills to sort of be a complete professional. So I think that in itself
Hmm.
says a lot about the way education was. But now, like you said, that there have been changes, skill mapping is happening. I think I've been personally
Uh,
associated with a lot of skill development programs in my previous
hmm.
organization
Hmm.
while I was in India. So yeah,
Hmm.
things are indeed changing. Before I
Hmm.
quickly move to the topic at hand, I wanted to know, what uh, is it that you have at IT that you guys do
Hmm.
apart from the studies, normal studies, that would help your students to get a job when they finally graduate?
Absolutely. You see, although because Isabella Thoburn College is the college which offers a degree in BA and BSc and MA and MSc and BCom. So some of these courses are although come under the category of the higher education, but still we have felt that the students still require a higher degrees to get the employability, because these are the UG and the PG courses which somehow seems to be not offering the employability that the students are looking for. But still in IT, we offer a lot many avenues for the students. Like there are a lot of internships which students do with us, and we have a industrial linkage, a vast industrial linkage, in which the students get to go to these industries and get to do the summer internships. And even now, the Lucknow University has changed the syllabus from this year, in which they have added an internship in the PG course. So that is also happening. And so in IT, we try to place them also. There are many companies which also come on the campus, and there is a campus placement also. But then again, being a UG and a PG institution, we have our limitations in terms of offering jobs. But then we again try to do a lot of extension activities. There are a lot of workshops and seminars. The students are very much sensitized as compared to other colleges. So IT is,
Right.
that way helping the students a lot.
Right. I think bravo to that. Being a being a
Yes, a lot of.
BA, a college that offers only BA
Mm,
and MA,
yes,
this
yeah,
comes out
yeah.
as a surprise that you guys are doing so much in making sure they are employable. Wonderful.
Lot
Right.
of value addition is being done. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I think that is needed. That is needed to bridge that gap between
Yeah,
campus to
yeah,
corporate. Right. So let's
absolutely.
quickly talk about, service sector is one of the largest sources of employment, not only just in India, I mean, across the world. Service sector is kind of backbone of the economy the world
Mm-hmm.
over. Let's quickly talk about your research paper, impact of economic reforms on growth and employment with special reference to service sector. Let's quickly talk about this paper. I mean, why did you choose this? Why did you specifically choose service sector? And yeah, please go on. I'll leave it to you to describe in
Actually,
detail.
yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, when I wanted to choose a PhD topic, there were two things in my mind. I wanted to establish a relationship, because this was bothering me for quite some time. It seems that India was having a GDP growth rate. Like, this is a pre-pandemic scenario. India was having a GDP growth rate of about 7 to 8%, but somehow, somewhere, the employment ratio was very depressing. And because what happened was that as even we know that there are three sectors. There is the agriculture sector, or a primary sector. Then there is a secondary sector. And then there is also services sector. In the 50s and 60s and 70s, main growth was coming from agriculture, but then agriculture was also able to provide employability. But then what happened? There was a shift during 80s, when ad hoc liberalization was introduced in India. During 80s and in the 90s, when India opened its market, there was a huge shift of GDP growth rate, from agriculture to services sector, which was a welcome step. Everybody was like, the term which was used for India was like caged lion was uncaged, and now this can do wonders for India, which happened on front. But then again, the employability problem remains. So So what attracted me towards this particular topic was the jobless growth concept, which was, coming again and again in many of the newspapers. And I was wondering why services sector, which was actually contributed, let's say 56 to 60% of the GDP, failed, was just able to employ 24% of the workforce. What is wrong with that? Where is the gap? And hence the topic, impact of economic reforms on growth and employment, with special reference to services sector. So I wanted to study the growth and employment, both the aspects, and then their relationship with the employment. That's what attracted me, and specifically in the services sector. So when I went ahead and did a research, it was a secondary, actually it was based on secondary data. So I used all the econometric tools which I was at my disposal. But the problem which I faced was that there is not much data available as far as services sector is concerned, because services sector is huge, as you know. There is a trade involved, so is the total hotel industry, so is the tourism, and so is the health, and so is the education. So because of this, what I needed was a data specifically for the services sector and the GDP and employment, which unfortunately was not available. It is only available in a what you can say a 5-year period, because the difference of the 5-year, because an SSO collect data in the difference of 5 years only. And I needed an yearly data. So my research was basically I wanted to study the period of 80s and 2010 specifically, when India went through this transformation. So yes, it was a good experience, because while studying for India, you really realize that although there may be some bottlenecks there, but then India is a country which has a huge potential. So even in the services sector, growth and employment have a relationship, but unfortunately the part where we all are worried about is that growth is somehow not translating into employment. Yeah.
I think true. That's so true about so many sectors in India, but service sector in particular is quite vulnerable. And you rightly use the analogy over here that a lion has been unleashed. What happened during the liberalization days was amazing. Service sector, we were an agricultural based economy earlier, but then suddenly we moved from agriculture to service sector, which was a huge boost. Airlines, hotels, education. So that sort of changed in the last 20 years. And that brings me to a very important topic, impact of COVID-19 on service sector. So have you done any kind of research towards that? I'm sure it has been impacted in a big way, service sector. But if you can talk about that.
Sure. See, as you said, that the services sector is very vulnerable. The reason why service sector is vulnerable is basically because most of the workforce is working in the informal sector in our country. 94%, that's a very, very, staggering data. 94% of the workforce actually works in India in the informal sector. So if only a, handful of people are working in the formal sector, so informalization leads to all sorts of a problem. And this pandemic has only, highlighted that. It has not only highlighted that, but it has brought this particular problem at the front. We all have seen the pictures of migrant labor, going from Mumbai to various places to their villages, rushing. What was that? Basically, that labor was being employed in the services sector only, but in the informal sector. They didn't have any, security of the wages, or they didn't have any security. There was no social security provided to them. So as a result, I think the pandemic has, COVID-19 has really brought this issue to the forefront, that the government should have some kind of a policy for the, should focus on this informal sector. And I understand that what happens is the services sector actually is a very skilled based sector. It requires, when you get employment in the services sector, it requires a certain set of skills, which the labor which is being employed in the services sector sometimes do not have that skills, because sometimes this labor is coming directly from the villages. These are the migrant labor. pandemic has really brought this issue to the forefront, and then there was a problem of because people were being laid off. Many people during pandemic have lost the job. Many are being given the salary, getting half salary. So what happened was that the consumption reduced. Now, because if the consumption reduced, what happens is the demand reduced. So because the demand was coming from the services sector, or the people who were employed in the services sector. So as a result, India is facing a huge crunch on the demand front. And if the demand will not be there, what happens is it's a simple linkage. If the demand will not be there, the production will not be able to happen. So India actually is facing a problem not only on the demand. There is a deficiency of demand. There is also a deficiency of investment happening, even at the private sector front. So is it is happening even the government front. Also, the government is trying to push money, liquidity into the market, and trying to bring India out of by giving all the fiscal stimulus. But then again, there is a problem over there. And the third, C plus I, which means consumption plus investment, plus G, that is government expenditure, plus fourth, exports. These are the four things that actually run the country. So I think the saving grace is that we are having a government expenditure. Government is trying to boost industry. Otherwise, we are facing deficiency on all fronts. And this is basically because of the COVID-19. As a result, the country is facing a lot of problems at the economic front right now and have many challenges. But I'm sure we will be able to come out from the various fiscal packages that the government has given.
Right. So you're optimistic about the future of service sector after
Absolutely. Because see, services sector is the sector which has huge potential of employability. The only problem is that we are not channelizing the population towards that. We are not, the government has started, as we all know, the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, and there are very skill-based like Make in India programs like this are targeted towards boosting these kind of things. Atmanirbhar Bharat actually works on the five major. There are five major pillars which the Prime Minister has talked about. So I think these are all steps in the right direction, but we have to give it time. Everything needs time.
Right. And do you think? I think you require a lot of time in doing this, and it's surprising that it's still unorganized. Majority of the workforce in service sector is still unorganized. But I want to ask you something.
Absolutely.
Do you think the NSDC programs, under which there are a number of sector skill councils, for example, hospitality sector skill council, do you think they are impactful? Is that working? Training the people at the grassroots level and bringing them into the organized workforce, so to speak. Is that working? The sector skill councils.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. See, NSDC is basically, I think, a targeted-based NSDC is a more viable solution. What happens is that the government should actually target the marginalized section. That's what they are trying to do. See, the women or the marginalized section like SC and ST and people who are living below the poverty line. Basically, they are trying to uplift them, and so NSDC is basically targeting these people. So there are free learning resources that are being given by the government. There are a lot of things that is happening. That there are job role-based resources that is also there, like electronics and healthcare, and the Pradhan Mantri Arogya Mitra Yojana. That there is a POS technical machine. These are all the NSDC is trying to do is to skill people. But then again, you're right that what is happening at the ground level probably is that there is a gap because the implementation is not that effective at the ground level. So I think the money is there, the center is ready to do it, and the money is flowing. But then because this is the grassroots level thing, what happens is the hierarchy is there. There's the center, then there's a state, then there is a zonal level, then there is a district, and then there's a village. So what happens is in this hierarchy, the implementation has to be there at all levels. The synergy has to be there, and that synergy is actually lacking.
Right. Do you think we require more government-private sector partnership to bridge this gap?
Absolutely. See, infrastructure financing is something, or a PPP model has been there in India since 90s. We have been practicing that. More public-private partnership is required. But then again, see, India is a country that is still vulnerable and requires a lot of intervention on the part of the government. Government cannot do away with its role. Not now, not I think in the near future, we require a lot of intervention on the part of the government. So, of course, the partnership is good. The private sector should come in, but the government needs to be there to intervene at the times when, in such dicey times, specifically in the COVID-19 situation, because government has a role which the private sector do not, take. That is a welfare, and that welfare economy or the welfare role, comes from the government. So, facilitator, the role of facilitator, which the government took after 90s is not enough. The government has to intervene and intervene at the ground. I understand the cost of interventions from the subsidies and other things actually create a burden on the government, which we understand. But then again, the intervention is required. So PPP model is always welcome. But then again, the government intervention should always be there.
True, true. Here's a staggering fact about service sector. It contributed to 55.39% of India's growth value, India's gross value in the financial year 2020. So I think service sector is a very important sector for India's growth. The
cannot be neglected. Yes.
trillion economy target. We cannot neglect service sector. Although, I feel that during pandemic, service sector has been neglected a lot. A lot of jobs have been lost. Not only just India, I see the same thing in Canada. A lot of service sector jobs have been lost, and governments need to do more to boost this sector if it has to, emerge from the pandemic successfully. That was a wonderful discussion about economics and service sector. This sector is really close to my heart. This is the sector that has actually made my career. So I'm always curious to know more about this sector. Thank you so much for enlightening us about this sector. Now I wanted to ask you, you've had maybe good experiences, bad experiences as an academic, but what would you say to youngsters and students who aspire to be teachers, lecturers, professors? What would you say to them?
Now yes, it is a good question. And
before that, let me ask you, do you think the person that Dr Amita Marwah is today, she wouldn't be the same person had she chosen a different probably line of work, let's say 15 years ago?
See, what happens is that I think we all have a calling. I don't know whether people know that or not, but we all have a calling. Calling is something that when we are in a secondary level education or higher education, we all don't work. We all wonder what we will become, what we want to do in life. And when I was, thinking, when I was in this phase and wanted to, really give a concrete shape to my plans, I wanted to see this field. Although I was preparing for the civil services initially and NET and all that, which I cleared, but the teaching was something which I always wanted to do. But initially I was not that serious about this career. But then when I got into the job, what attracted me about what this job is, money is not. I realized that money is not always required end result. What I was looking for is, and I got the opportunity to interact with people, and the interaction part, and specifically the interacting with the youth, is very energetic. And once you get into that, and once you do something with a passion, and you're doing something which you are passionate about, I think that makes you who you are. So to answer your question, that yes, basically most of what I am today is basically because of this education sector only. And I joined, I think at the end of the day, although we all have those thoughts that I could have done something, which I always have a chance. I always think that I can steady at, just driving a car and just, take the steering in some other direction. But then again, I think I have enjoyed this career, and this is whatever I am is basically because of this education sector only. So I'm grateful that I chose the right field.
Wonderful. And finally, what is your message to the youngsters who aspire to be to choose academic as their career?
Absolutely, go ahead. If you want long hours, if you want to work for a long hours, and if you just don't want, what do what can we say? We have a saying in our college: we receive to give, and so if you have that kind of a passion, whatever you've received, if you want to give back to the society, I think this is the best profession you want to be. But then again, it has its own challenges, like every other sector. And of course, the employability in this sector is also decelerating. The main reason is basically because the institutions, the government is basically not hiring right now. So these are the challenges which are there. But I think we always need a good teacher. There is a requirement of the good teachers, because teachers are the ones, that's what I believe, make the future generation. So yes, the future generation want to join, welcome. But then again, you should be ready for all that.
Yeah, and I think another message that I would want to give them is, don't just stick to government jobs. Don't just wait for government jobs.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know so many people who work in marketing. They are exceptionally qualified. They've got PhD in UP and Bihar, yet they work in different fields, waiting for government job to happen. They keep giving entrance exams. Look at the private sector colleges. I mean, they're good. They're really good. Look at them. We need really good manpower in private sector colleges as well. So, don't just wait for the government sector jobs to happen, and that till that time you're not in academics. So be there, be in the private sector as well. And we've got some of wonderful colleges in private sector as well. So I think that was
absolutely.
That was a wonderful message for the youngsters. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Be ready for a thankless job. Don't expect too much out of it. But then, if you're passionate about it, do it.
No.
You love teaching.
See, I would like to say something here. It's not thankless. So when the student comes and says, "See, what I have become today is because of you," or
exactly.
I always want to become you, and I get a lot of messages like that. I want to be you. They literally say, "I want to be you," and this is just you. It makes you think that you, like, I don't think about myself the way they think about me. So that's very encouraging, actually. So it's not that thankless, yes, but it turns out to be. If you're expecting too much, don't expect too much. That's
the real compliment for a teacher or a lecturer or a professor, when the student comes up and says, what, I look up to you and I want to be like you. That's the real compliment. I think
that's what
what I wanted to say to everyone is, and this message should go out loud, is look at your teachers today, look at your lecturers, you look at your professors, look at your trainers today. They are struggling so much because of the pandemic, yet they are giving their 100% when it comes to online education. So the fact is, when you do not take this seriously, then you're actually not respecting them. So if you want to respect your academic staff, then start taking your studies seriously, even in the online format. That is the first step which needs to be taken. I think they deserve our utmost respect. Teachers Day is celebrated just one
there are
day.
Many teachers
we need to celebrate that every day.
There are many teachers who actually thank you. There are many teachers who actually learned these skills of online teaching. The passion was the only driving force. They wanted to connect to the students, and there were many teachers who were not skilled in online mode or pedagogy, for that matter. But they still went ahead and took a challenge. I think you have to understand the situation from the teacher's point of view also. So it was wonderful.
Exactly. See, because the students have the choice of switching on or keeping their videos off. They have the choice not to sit in front of the laptop while the teacher is talking. They have the choice to not to listen to them. But the teachers don't have the choice. They still have to give their 100%, and they are doing a fantastic job in making sure that there is no gap, especially in a country like India, wherein the lockdown was for 8 months, almost 8 months, right? So they worked really hard to make sure that the education does not suffer. We need to give them the respect they deserve. And to that, I would like to thank Dr. Marwah for taking time out to speak with us. I mean, that was an enlightening session for me personally, and I'm sure the listeners also enjoyed listening to us. Thank you so much, Dr. Marwah.
Thank you, Jasveer.
Right.
It was a pleasure.
It was indeed my pleasure as well talking to you. So, guys, that was Dr. Marwah for you talking about economics and the service sector. Thank you so much for taking time out to listen to us. I will be back with another episode. Till then, have a great day. Thank you.